back to enYouth Counsel. I'm Chandra Vimala, and we are so fortunate to have Mama Nisha back. Mama Nisha, we've had lots of replies of our conversations around communication, and it's just been overwhelming, and they've just been saying thank you very much. They've learned so much, and so this is going to be our third show on communication. And the first we were talking about effective listening, and the second was how we respond to events. We had a lot of emails around a lot of complaints, and so we thought it was really a good show to talk about how do we respond when there is so much complaints. So they had complaints about not enough freedom, a lot of restrictions, that people want them to be mature, but they always want them to be treated like a child. How you start to respond to when you have so many complaints. How do you deal with these?
Nithyananda, thank you for having me back on the show. And when we look at complaints, in the last show we spoke about how life happens, and when life is happening, you have a response to what's happening. It occurs to you in a certain way and you respond. And complaints is a typical way of response which most of us engage in. And when you look a little closely at anything that you call a complaint in life, it's basically that you're not okay with something that's happening around you in terms of maybe a relationship or a situation. Something that occurs to you as this is not okay with me is probably the basic of what you can call as a complaint. That said, it's even a little more deeply if you look at it, it's actually your resistance to something which is happening out there in life. So there is this situation, there is this circumstance, or there is this your brother, sister, or a relationship in which you are in. And when what is happening in life, when things are happening, your resistance to something out there in what is happening is what becomes a complaint for you. And as a cardinal rule in nature, whatever you resist persists. Like the more you want to put up, the more you put up with something, the more you want something to go away, the more you resist and say I'm not okay with this, you will notice that it continues persisting, or rather it continues coming back into your life in some form or the other. Unfortunately, we fail to notice this and realize this, and we just think that by putting up with it and by more and more cribbing about it, or more and more worrying about it, having more and more thoughts about it, I'll be able to come out of it. But it's sadly the other way around. The more and more you do any of this, the more and more you deepen the impression of that complaint or the impression of that particular occurrence in your life. It becomes stronger, and it starts gripping you. And that's where you will see that people recurrently over the years have complaints which just are there. Whether you have a complaint about a relationship that you're in, you will see that there will be a lot of up and down in relationships as it is, but the complaints keep coming back, and the same kind of complaints keep coming back. Or whether it is something you're not okay in life, like maybe a traffic jam, you will notice that often when you are not out to work and you're looking from the window or your balcony, you'll notice that, oh, the traffic is so smooth. And just as you are out and going, and it's especially an important day and you need to be there on time, you will just notice that you're stuck in a terrible traffic jam. So anything in life which you unknowingly or in unawareness are resisting, that continues to persist, that continues to have a grip on you. So the first thing we would like all of us to understand is this, that any complaint or any situation that you're not okay with life, that you're resisting in life, the first and foremost thing is to bring in awareness. Become aware of the situation. Acknowledge that, number one, I'm not okay with this situation. For most of us, it's not so. You just put up with it. So first is to identify what is the complaint that I have. What exactly is going inside, what's happening when I'm engaging myself in this complaint. And that's really the first step. And when you look a little more into the structure of a complaint, oftentimes we know, all of us know, that complaints have an impact of a loss on us. As in when I am in, having a complaint about something, I'm losing something, which could be probably my peace of mind at that point in time. And if I am in fierce arguments, or if I'm fighting with someone fiercely, probably I get a headache after that, which is my health or my well-being, or probably the affinity in that relationship. All that at that moment is not there. And this is an easy one to see, and people know that because of this complaint I'm not there all the time. It has some bearing on who I am. But what we often do not know, again, which is another aspect of we being unaware of something called a complaint, is that all complaints also have a gain to it.
And what kind of gain?
Yeah.
Will be receiving that?
So it's shocking, and it looks very paradoxical that how come there's a gain in a complaint, because complaint is one aspect that I'm not okay with. So
because it's like, to me, it's like you've been treated unfairly. And I mean, some of them too, it's just what they said, sometimes females are not treated the same as males, or, we want our youth to act mature and, to be dealing with things, but in return, we don't treat them the same.
Right.
So, in a sense, where does the gain happen with that?
Yeah, so this is a question which, if you look at, you will see that human beings are the most intelligent species on planet Earth. And as a human being, you have access to whatever you want in life, you get that. You have that extraordinary access. And if you look at complaints, you have so many complaints in life, and you have them only by the virtue of there being a gain inside of you having that complaint. Because if there's something you're not okay with, like for example, consider you're having a headache. And if you're not okay with that headache, what would you do? You would step out and probably take medicine, or you meet a doctor, or you do something to drive the headache away. But there's nothing inside you, like there's nothing in your life which you keep and which you're not okay about, So other way said, it is that there is an underlying gain in each complaint that we have in life, and this is primarily the reason why we have complaints, especially recurring complaints. Otherwise, for the kind of intelligence human beings have, it's unlikely that you would have a complaint for years. And we know there are people who've been having complaints for 10, 15, so many years. So that brings up this very strange thing called that there is a gain in each complaint. And when you look at it and ask yourself, what is it that I'm getting out of responding to life in this particular manner? Because it's again just another response that you have to what's happening. Inside of what we spoke in the last time, inside of what's occurring to me, how do I choose to respond? And if we remember, we spoke last time how different individuals can be given the same situation, and because it occurs differently to different people, the response may be different. So that said, even for a complaint, it's no different. You can choose to respond in each situation differently, but because there is an underlying gain, which again we are unaware of, we tend to behave in the same manner or take it in the same way again and again. And when you look at what is this gain, it could be a range of many things. For example, you subtly proving a point. Whenever I'm running a complaint and I know that I'm doing this because I am right. The righteousness that comes out from the ego that we have inside us. Anything wherein you're stuck in life, where you do not have a freedom to be and a freedom to act differently, I would term that as your ego. That which puts you and sticks and makes you stuck in a situation is nothing but your ego. Especially in your complaints, if you take any complaints that you recurrently have in life, you will see either of these things, that probably you're looking at being right, you're looking at dominating something, or avoiding domination from someone, you're looking at justifying and defending yourself. So usually these are the things which run us, or you're looking at winning. If it's an argument, typically, I must win this, because it becomes a threat to your identity if you have to behave in any other way.
And then, what Swamiji was talking about was suffering too, that some people love their suffering and hold on to their suffering. So would that be the same as the gain?
Absolutely. It's the same thing again. As Swamiji very beautifully says that human beings have a choice to suffer. And unfortunately, 99% of human beings choose to suffer. Because all that's happening in life is life is rolling by, and in the face of what is happening, each one of us have a say in the matter of how we would like to respond to it. And whether you suffer from what's happening, whether you choose to, whether you run a complaint, whether you have a complaint about what's happening, you're not okay with what's happening, it's all inside of you choosing to be that way. So it's very true.
Because it's sometimes you're holding, like I said, you want to be right, and the grudge that you may hold, that you're going to stand firm to it, really is about ego.
Absolutely. And the biggest thing I would say in the gain again is you being a victim. Many situations, for example, when you say that I'm a girl, I'm not treated equally, or this person bullies me, or I'm not heard, or usually most of the things, and especially where you have a complaint with yourself. Lot of people have, and that's the most dangerous kind of a complaint, when you have it with yourself, that mostly coming from I'm not good enough, I'm not capable enough to, I'm not as experienced as the other person, or I'm not so smart. All of this comes out of a gain where inherently you're saying I am a victim. And that's again an ego boost, where your identity is otherwise threatened if you have nothing to worry about. So you constantly have something to worry about, and you're saying I am a victim. The underlying statement is that I am a victim, and therefore you have that kind of a gain which runs that complaint again and again and again.
And actually we were just talking about this too, that I've had a learning disability for a long time, and so for me to, Swamiji has put me in some beautiful opportunities to no longer hide, because I used to hide quite a lot behind it. But it was a cushion for me that I could say, well, I didn't do this because I, had that disability. I didn't move forward. It was kind of like having that ability. It was a cushion, I guess, if I want to say that. Now, once it's removed, I have nowhere to hide behind it. I have to kind of move forward. So it is something that we can also hide behind, is if we have, like, a sickness, or if there's something that's going on, suffering. It is a great wall or mask, I guess, if you want to put it, being able to hide behind it.
Absolutely.
And is that ego then?
Yes, absolutely. But unfortunately, it puts you into a pit from which you just can't get out of, because the more you indulge in it, the more you go down and down and down into it. And by the time you probably want to really make a difference to yourself and come out, many a times it becomes too late.
True.
Where, you end up being on medication, you end up with chronic diseases. You have so much of suffocation in life. And this actually, unfortunately again, starts penetrating into other areas of your life. So if you see typically people who have complaints, you will see the quality of life really is so poor. It's not that there are situations where they're put and they just are happy and they're beaming. Usually they have the tendency to look at life from an aspect of complaint. Of what is that is not okay in this situation? What is that I'm not happy with here? Versus really looking at the other side, that what are the things which are really fantastic here? Unfortunately it becomes an attitude and very difficult to get out of, because it's again a paradox where you don't want that way of being and you're holding on to it and you're putting up with it, and it persists and it becomes more.
It really affects yourself. Even we were talking recently again on another show of thinking, okay, I can have a grudge against one person or not speak or whatever to that person or what's happening, but I can be loving to myself and I can continue on with my life. And that is just not true.
Certainly.
It just cannot be two separate lives.
Yes.
That is going to be something that, number one, will start to affect you.
Yes.
And it eats away at you, that you have that continue, because you're holding on and you're holding on, and
Right.
it gets bigger and bigger. Part of which, we wanted to have the show with the youth, to say, this will continue on with your life if you don't deal with it.
Yes.
And, I worked as a grief counselor for many years, and that was why I started to work with youth, because the last 3 months of people's life, they're running around trying to resolve these, complaints and grudges and things that have happened. And I saw such a waste of our life, of long periods of holding on to these things. And so that's why it was just such a great, topic for you to come on. And so what do you do with these things? Like, what do you do when you got all these grudges and you're holding it for so much? And, how do you release it?
Yeah. So number one is to know that there is this unawareness in me which doesn't look at a gain aspect of a complaint. Usually we associate it with loss, as I said. So first thing is to just first get that there is a complaint. And as you rightly said, no matter how much you want to hide it, no matter how much you do outwardly to kind of mask it, it doesn't work. It's like, you putting scented oil on cow dung. And you're putting layers and layers of perfume on cow dung, but eventually it's going to stink. So where you are, it's going to hit you somewhere down the lane. You may be able to be successful for probably a few years, few months, but it doesn't work because basically what is there is cow dung. So really first to look at it and acknowledge that there is a complaint, there is a response that I have to that I am having to life, where life is and where I am. It's occurring to me in a particular way, and me responding to it with resistance, which is actually taking a toll on me, where I am first. And then of course it does extend to immediate situations in life. It does extend to, it takes a toll on your relationships, takes definitely a toll on your health, and the way you project yourself to be to others in your workplace, personal life, in friends, in your social circles, literally everywhere. So really the first step is to get that. And the second step is to ask yourself, am I willing to drop this? Am I willing to let go? And when I mean let go, it's not merely the resistance to that area, but let go of the gain that you have when you are having the complaint. Am I willing to be vulnerable and just stand there and say that it's okay not to be right? As long as I'm getting off the complaint, it's okay to have another have the last say in the matter. It's okay to accept and be open to whatever may come from life. So really asking yourself, and for that you need to be aware of what is the gain that I'm having. Am I being right, overly righteous about this thing, that I'm stuck and I don't want to leave it? And am I looking at winning over something, demanding and dominating someone? Or am I really being a victim? I'm just sinking into a pit of self sympathy, and I'm really craving for that kind of an attention from others. Am I being a victim? So when you ask yourself, it would be usually one or more of these. And acknowledge that, as in bring that to your awareness and tell yourself, okay, this is the area, this is the particular complaint I have. This is the experience I'm having, or the mood or the feelings that I'm going through. And really the loss is anyways evident, it's pretty evident. You're not happy, you're not peaceful, you're not just joyful. None of that is there, so that's easy one to get. But really the tough one, which needs a lot of courage where you are, is to look at what is the gain. Alright, so maybe this is the gain, and that I'm being so right. Or maybe I'm being a victim and I would love to be that. And once you get those down, probably pen them down in a book, because it really helps when you write. When you write something and then you're verbalizing it, it becomes a very active part of your biomemory, to an extent that it doesn't be in your unaware zone anymore. It becomes conscious part of you. It becomes an aware part of you. It's like you putting a strong light on a dark area. And the moment I bring in light, darkness just goes.
And I've always found writing too, there's some hidden things underneath it that I never knew. So once I start writing it, all of a sudden I realize I had some anger, let's say, of something else. Or so it really does help when you start to write through all of that.
Totally. And it's like, as I was saying, it's like you going into a dark cave, it's been dark and dark for ages, and you just putting a spotlight right there. It takes seconds for the darkness to just disappear. So you may be in the clutches of the complaint or the resistance to life for years now. But just moments of awareness, a few minutes of you sitting with that particular area and collecting yourself together and answering these simple questions. What is the complaint? What is that which I'm not okay with? Which aspect of life is this? And if it's a relationship, who else is involved? Is it my brother, mother, father, whoever it is, And then looking at what am I losing out of all this? What am I actually having to give away with? Like health or vitality or affinity.
Or pride.
Or pride, or what is it? And then really looking at the tough one, which is what is the gain I'm getting? And for that you must be willing to consider first that there is a gain. And I know as viewers are watching this, they may actually have a resistance to even that there could be a gain. Again, it doesn't work. This is something which when considered really leaves you free. And you may not like a medicine, but then you will have to take it when you have a headache, when you have a stomachache. And nobody is saying the medicine is sweet. I'm not saying that at all. But all I'm saying is a medicine is required. Whether you like the taste or not, you will have to swallow it for that pain to go away. So similarly, this method is the same way, You may not like it, but then it leaves you free at the end of it. And that's what matters.
And I truly feel if someone's resisting, then you're gaining.
Absolutely.
Because if it doesn't resist, then you would flow and say, oh, that's right, I'll look out for that gain.
Right.
Or I'll what. But when you're going, no, like, that's not right, or
Right.
you're not understanding, I always find when that resistance, then, we've just hit something, that you are getting a gain.
Absolutely. And as you acknowledge it, and as you consider that there is a gain where I am when I'm running complaints, you may not get it like in the first instance, but as you're sitting with the area again and again, you're looking and re-looking at it, there will be a time when you know, oh, this is really what's happening. And really getting to be a victim, it's not about the situation, not about the other person, nothing. It's occurring to me in a way where I feel good by being a victim. And that's what you may want to write down as well. And after that, really looking at expressing that out, because again, as powerful as writing is when you start sharing what's happening, then it's no more in an unconscious zone. So sharing it with the relevant parties, with the relevant people. If it's a relationship, really going out and speaking to that person. And for sharing, you really need a huge demand of courage on yourself, because it takes a lot to come out and express that, my little gain in this was this. It's not easy. Yes. Yes, and that also involves, I think, even before sharing, you wanting to forgive yourself. That it's okay. People, we are human. So we all have these little aspects of us which wants us to be, where you want yourself to be protected and things like that. So you being able to forgive yourself, and on the same light, you being able to forgive the other. Because even they are humans and they're going through similar things. So first really starts with the willingness of looking at the complaint and working it out. And once you've noted down these steps, looking at being willing to forgive and forget the whole thing. Where you are, forgive yourself, maybe forgive the other, probably ask the other to forgive you. That. And then it's a matter of expressing it out. Express it out to the person, sit and have a conversation. Anything and everything can be sorted out with communication and conversations. So you really being able to sit across and take the other person's time and ask them for their listening, and you expressing it out. The best effective way is when you can directly express it with the relevant person. And if that doesn't work, for whatever reason, you do not have access to that person personally or directly, or probably the person is not alive anymore. Like I had a similar issue with my sister, who's no more. And when I got to do this process, I actually wrote the whole thing down, and now that she was not alive, I sat with another friend of mine and requested her to be my sister at that moment, and I spoke it out. And it gets resolved very powerfully. So in the event that you cannot in person speak to a person, then you can probably sit with someone else and request them and be with them and speak it out. Or else you can even sit with the mirror and look at yourself and consider that the reflection you see is the other person. Or even if you're having complaints with yourself, that works brilliantly when you look at the mirror and connect with the person in the mirror. and speak it out again.
It was helpful that it's looking in the mirror, because you really do see, you know, your facial expressions and what you're saying and what other people see. And so that really gives a clarity of, you know, why sometimes people can get really frustrated, or that you are looking, that you're being defensive, or you are being resistant. You may be going like, I'm really like being sorry, but you're not in your face or in your actions. So it really does help when either you're role playing or you're mirroring, especially when it's a difficult situation.
Yes.
To work it out a little bit before you may speak to someone, or you just dive in. I mean, you have to know what is right for you.
Yes.
What we used to do too when someone has crossed over is that, you know, even a chair, and just, you know, imagine that person there, go to the graveyard or go to a place that was really special to that person, and, you know, then have that conversation. So it works. It helps to get it out. So
it actually works brilliantly well, Chandra, to the point that, you know, you will notice life where life is happening, you start attracting different kind of situations, and you start attracting favorable situations rather, and people who are no more consistent with what the complaint has been, you know. So life starts throwing different situations which is not anymore a part of the same old complaint, and more beautifully that who you are has evolved in the awareness that you are, that your response to life is more intelligent. You know, and being a master is literally that, where you have mastered your response to what's happening in life. Given that none of us have whatsoever any access on what's happening in life, you know, it happens, it's there. But in the face of what is so, how is it that I can be powerful to look at, even when I'm beginning to have a complaint, as I am trained in this particular structure, even as the complaint is popping up inside me, I can just wake up and look at it and just dismantle it even before it has come up, you know.
That's excellent. And definitely that, you know, sometimes we say, okay, it's not going to bother me anymore, and you know, that's happened 2 years ago, and like, I'm just going to forget about it. I mean, it was silly, and but it doesn't go away. When you have specific things like that, it really does hold on to you, and it affects, like you said, everything in your life and in your relationship. So it's worth putting yourself out there and doing the work, and you know, doing, like I said, having that conversation and looking through. If you've had that conversation and someone has really resisted it, maybe they're holding on and they refuse to forgive, or, you know, forget the situation, what do you do then?
Yes, that's a very good question. And yes, there is a possibility that where the other is, it's still there for them. And again, it starts with acknowledging that where the person is, their life occurs to them still in a particular way, and they have chosen to respond to what's occurring in a particular way. So what happens is, you know, it's got nothing to do with you where you are. It's got to do with how life is occurring, which includes you at that moment for the other person. And when you look at it from there, you will understand that where the person is, if life is occurring to them in that particular way, and they choose to respond in that particular way, that kind of gives you what can I say, a genuine, you know, a genuine sort of a concern for the person. Rather than upsetting you, you know, it can become that, okay, this is what they're dealing with right now. And that gives the space for you of not falling into the resistance again, but just accepting it at the face that this is what is so for them right now. So that's okay. You know, so it's very important what you bring up. It brings up a very important point, that whatsoever, don't have any expectation from you resolving the complaint. You know, again, you will see that you're falling from a complaint, you bounce into another complaint because you had an expectation. And expectation comes from, again, what? I am right. So it's again, you know, the game which bounces back and gives you another complaint upon probably the complaint which already existed. So it's very important to be very aware when you're doing this, so that you know what's happening, and you know that it's okay whether they accept this or not. Because remember, when you are resolving this complaint for you, it's not for the other person. It is for you. So what response they choose to be inside of is up to them. It's totally their freedom. And when you go with that kind of an understanding, you will see that it would have gotten resolved for you anyways. irrespective of what the other person says or does. And eventually, even for them, it shifts, it alters where they are. That's the first thing. Second thing, there may be chronic complaints. Like I've had it for years. I've been holding something against maybe my parents or brothers or sisters or things in life. And that probably even before you go towards the structure of the complaint, it would really help if you can do a small cathartic process, which we do it in our LBP level 1, which is Life Bliss Program level 1 meditation program in the Manipuraka Chakra, which is your navel center. So usually you'll see all the complaints that you have in life and the emotions associated get stored out because it becomes a worry for you. It gets stored in your navel center. So this process is where you bring in the situation, bring up those complaints, and you are in a room where you're with yourself, and you just let out all the emotions that surface as you're reliving those incidents. And this is important because it kind of eases the process for you once you've done with the emotions associated with the complaint. And this could be typically with chronic complaints, as I said, complaints which have existed over the years for you. Where you've had real complaints of maybe abuse or like physical abuse or mental abuse or emotional abuse by a member of the family, which is very common for a lot of us, or by your friends or anything like that. So it's very useful if you can mark yourself off for some time and bring in all the situation, the person, the event, bring it alive, relive it, and as it comes, just spit out all the emotions. If you notice that you have a lot of anger, it helps if you take a pillow and punch. It really helps. And if you just shout, just shout it out. As if the person were there, what would you behave? What would you have ideally wanted to behave, which probably you did not? Just shout that out. If you want to abuse, just leave that into the air. Let that come out completely. You can hit a pillow, you can maybe cry out loud, you can shout loud. But the point is, with awareness, when you do, it just releases all the emotions that were stored for over years.
It blocks in the chakra, so it releases the chakra.
Totally. And when the emotion is taken away, Chandra, what remains is the memory. And that's very easy to deal with in the structure. You can start writing down then, the complaint and what happened and what was your response. And then you'll be able to even figure out what was the loss and even what was the gain.
Because it really is, it gets it out. No judgment, just say what it has to. No one's going to, hear it, or if you tape it, erase it, or type it and then make sure you erase it, and then really get to the core of what's happening.
Yes.
And then you're able to kind of release it. Because when you're trying to be more productive, it's really hard when you still have those intense emotions. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah. No, that's wonderful. Well, thank you very much. We learned a lot. And if you have, again, any questions or any feedback, we're more than happy, and we're thrilled that you're writing in. And I hope that you really do return, because we've learned so much about communication. And really, it is the cornerstone of life. It's how we really interact with people and with ourselves. And it's wonderful for youth to learn this. I think that we don't really have an opportunity to understand effective communication. And so we really appreciate your time, and thank you.
Thank you so much. And we have a blissful time. Thank you.